Welcome to another dusty day in the shop. Today we're going to make, yep, you guessed it, a pair of these mid-century modern oak and maple nightstands. To start this project off, we took some 5/4 white oak and planed it down to just under an inch thick. Then, after cutting to rough length, we could rip one straight edge with the joining jig on the table saw. The boards aren't quite wide enough for what we need, so we glued two together, and the dowels help keep everything aligned during the glue up. Once the glue dried, we ran the boards through the planer a couple more times to get it to the finished thickness and remove any excess glue on the faces. Really, the only tricky things about this project were to find the angles of the trapezoid and then figure out how to cut them. So before you do this, thank your old geometry teacher. The angle we decided on was 15 degrees off of 90. I modified my spline jig a little bit so I could just clamp a board right to it. This jig is now basically just a taller fence. Some of the cuts in this project were definitely pretty sketchy, so please be cautious and use your own discretion if you decide to do this. After surviving the table saw, I thought it was a good time to cut a rabbet on all the boards to accept the back panel, as it would be easier to do before the glue up. For the glue up, I got a straight edge and some tape, put some glue in the joints, and rolled it all into a trapezoid. The seams were mostly fine, but the areas that were not would eventually get some wood filler. As the glue was drying, I decided to reinforce the joints a little bit with a few small dowels. As I made the drawer slides from scrap plywood, the wife got a head start on prepping the nightstand carcasses for the die by sanding up to 220. We used India ink on this white oak, which I think turned out beautifully, and came up with the term black oak to describe the new look. We sealed everything in with a spray-on satin polyurethane. The drawers for this piece are really nothing fancy, just a simple plywood box with butt joints, but I did create this dado with my table saw so the drawers can slide along that plywood runner I installed in the carcass before finishing. The drawer face came from the same maple slab I used for my headboard. I have a video on the matching headboard, so check it out if you haven't already. And hit up Richard's website if you're in need of some lumber. He's not a sponsor, I just think he's an awesome guy with an awesome selection of wood. I cut the shape of the drawer face from the slab, then split it into two since I'm making two nightstands, then cut the faces to length with the correct angles. I used the old playing card method to ensure even spacing around the face, and secured it to the drawer with screws from the inside. To complete the body of the nightstands, we applied a few coats of a matte water-based polyurethane to the faces and moved on to making the legs. The leg assembly came from the same white oak that we planed down to just under an inch. After jointing one edge on the table saw, I could flip the piece to get another straight edge and its final width. The two stretchers that hold the legs to the body form an X, and to achieve that, I used a half-lap joint. I set up the miter gauge on my table saw, and after taking my very first pass, I immediately realized my blade actually needed to be at 90 degrees. No biggie, that mistake can eventually be hidden. After cutting the appropriate angle on the ends and hogging out the half-lap, I could then use my quick and dirty tapering jig on the legs. The legs are not cut to final length at this point, and I'll demonstrate why in a second. I secured the legs to the stretchers with glue and hidden dowels, and once each pair of legs was assembled, I ran them through the table saw to its final length, or height. Doing it this way ensures all the angles and legs are exactly the same. Before gluing the whole assembly together, I did a dry test fit, and then decided to see what the final product would look like. It looked okay, and the wife approved, but I thought it looked a little like a head and body with no neck. So a quick design change. I had the idea to lift the drawer assembly off the legs by using some small dowels. I ended up using 1/4-inch aluminum dowels as that's all I had on hand, but I thought it looked really cool. After all the holes were drilled for the dowels, we could finish the leg assembly by using the same India ink method to achieve the black oak look, and sprayed a few coats of satin polyurethane. I whipped up some 5-minute epoxy to glue the aluminum dowels into place, and after doing so, the project is finally done. There were definitely quite a few tricky parts, but I'm so happy with the way these turned out. They match our headboard beautifully and are so functional. I'll post some pictures of the matching nightstands and headboard over on Instagram. If you like this video, please show me by giving me a thumbs up, and consider gently caressing that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.